Northwest Cavalryman Show, the podcast where your host, Rick Skolrud, discusses politics and news from Canada, the United States, and around the world, from a conservative perspective. Warning: professionally offended people and liberal crybabies may be triggered. Viewer discretion is advised. While we put the finishing touches on this podcast, you are invited to visit the show notes. There are links to all of Rick's social media, including his website where you can sign up to take the Canadian Firearms Safety Course, which is a prerequisite for obtaining your Canadian Firearms License, also known as a PAL. Rick teaches these courses in Maple Bay just east of Duncan on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Now here's your host, Rick Skolrud.
Hey everybody, how's it going tonight? Struggling to get things up and going. Had some technical difficulties earlier on. I had some audio problems. I couldn't get the audio to working. So got it up and running. Hopefully everything is coming through great. If everybody can give me the usual sound check, that would be great, because I never know if I'm actually broadcasting until somebody tells me that they can hear me. Hello, Nelson Cade from New Brunswick. Hello, Inez Kelman from Edmonton. And hello, Jessica from Pensacola, Florida. I hope everybody's doing good tonight. So, as I said, I had some technical difficulties, but I think I have it sorted out, which made me run a little late. So I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants tonight. I do have some clips, but I haven't actually worked out exactly the order that I'm going to do all the clips in. Hello, Harley, and hello, Lynn from Calgary. So we are, first off, I didn't really intend to do this, but it's all about defense of North America tonight. Which is interesting, because there's a lot of things obviously happening in North America and Canada, the United States, throughout this week. But when I started putting all this stuff together, I just realized, all of my clips, almost all, not all, but almost all of my clips are on defense. So we're going to be talking about defense of North America. And of course, one of the big things this week was Trump's announcement of the Iron Dome. Of course, we know that President Trump has been quite critical of Canada. Matter of fact, well, a lot of U.S. politicians have been. In the past, we've heard the what's his face there from Texas? Oh God, Ted Cruz. We've heard Ted Cruz criticize Canada quite a bit. We've heard Kennedy from Louisiana criticize Canada quite a bit, and we've heard Josh from Missouri criticize Canada quite a bit. And they've all got some pretty, they've all got really solid arguments that Canada just hasn't been pulling its weight. And I think that obviously it's time. But we've had this, we had obviously the announcement of the Golden Dome from Trump. So let's take a look at what he had to say and then compare it to what Carney had to say.
In the campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be be capable of intercepting missiles, even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful. And now we have technology that's even far advanced from that, but including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago.
Yeah, so I talked about this in one of my videos the other day. It actually didn't get very much traction at all, which I was a bit surprised about, because it is kind of a serious topic, this defense of North America, especially since things seem to be really heating up around the world. We've got, obviously, the main two conflicts are going on in Gaza and in Ukraine, but there's a ton more that are happening. So we really have to think about this a little bit. And of course, Carney, though, I don't know. I think that, we're going to find that Carney and Trump, although they seem to be pretty tight, they seem to be friends and possibly even have some business connections going way back. But I think that if Carney keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to have a fallout with Trump. And not just because of, he's always saying stupid things, but he seems to contradict Trump quite a bit. Now, it could be that they just haven't properly communicated at all, but I think this is kind of a big deal. Take a look at what Carney says about the Golden Dome.
The ambassador also said that there haven't been formal talks on the Golden Dome. Should Canada take part in that project, and how much would you be willing to spend on that?
Okay, well, I'm not going to put a price tag on the second part of your question. I think I'll say the following about the situation with air defense or ballistic missile defense, intercontinental ballistic missile defense, broader defense against, including potential missiles that in the not too distant future could come from space. These are some of the threats that our nation faces. We take those threats seriously. We take our responsibilities as a government seriously, as I just said. It's one of the reasons why we made the commitment back in March for the over-the-horizon radar, the first phase of the over-horizon radar system, and that was an independent decision that we took. We are conscious that we have an ability, if we so choose, to complete the Golden Dome with investments and partnership. And it's something that we are looking at and something that has been discussed at a high level, but I'm not sure one negotiates on this. These are military decisions that are then taken in that context.
Just read Jessica's comment there. That's why I was kind of laughing during that. Is Carney's smirk is so slimy, can't stand it. I can't stand it either. And Ron says the same thing. So hello, Pepper the Frenchie, and hello, Tiger Eye, and Colton S. from South Central Kentucky. And I don't think I've seen you put up where you're from before, Colton. So welcome from South Central Kentucky. You know what? Why don't you come up to Canada, Colton, and bring a case of bourbon with you, since we can't get it in BC anymore. I'm just kidding, obviously. Hey, DJ, and hey, Wonder. How y'all doing? So the comment I wanted to make about Carney's reply is, Trump was saying that Canada wanted to get in on this deal, almost like Canada had approached him. And I'm thinking that that's probably correct. But now Carney is kind of making it sound like, well, it's something we might consider going in on. And yeah, he's kind of being a little bit wishy-washy. And I think that's part of his whole strategy which I think is going to backfire pretty soon on him, and that he doesn't really want to commit, and he's really kind of he's two-faced. He says different things to different people all the time, and this happened during the election campaign. This happened just prior to the election campaign. Daniel Smith pointed it out several times. He would say one thing in Western Canada, another thing in Eastern Canada, one thing in English, another thing in French. Of course, his French isn't very good, but he's not a very honest person. He seems to have a real difficulty with the truth. So, how is it that, Carney here can be almost questioning what Trump is saying, and that we can really believe him? The defense of North America is on the shoulders of the United States. Unfortunately, we're not pulling our weight. Now, the defense of the United States really relies on the defense of Canada as well. So that's why Canada really has to pick up its socks in this area. We really have to start pulling our weight here. Now, you heard there that Carney was talking about the over-the-horizon radar system that he's going to buy from Australia. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but when you look at this Golden Dome system, well, why are we going to be duplicating that process? So we're going to be spending billions of dollars getting this over-the-horizon radar system from Australia, and then we're going to go in on the Golden Dome. Well, I think we should just go in on the Golden Dome, because that's going to cover this, everything and more that the over-the-horizon radar system covers. Maybe it's a backup that he wants. Okay, if it's a backup, it's a backup. And I'm all for redundancy in systems. That's good when it comes to defense and everything. But every time the Liberal government decides to buy something from overseas, I tend to screw things up. Our Phoenix pay system came from Australia, and the Australian government recommended us not to buy it because they had it and it didn't work for them. Canada bought it and it didn't work for us. And then I don't know if they've worked out all the bugs, if they still have it or not. I left the Canadian government 5 years ago now, or 4.5 years ago, I guess. So I can't say for sure whether or not they fixed the bugs with the Phoenix pay system. But, it's an example of the Liberals just throwing money away. Are they throwing money away with this over-the-horizon radar system when we're going to get in on the ground floor of this Iron Dome? this Golden Dome. And this Golden Dome isn't exactly unproven technology because it's an extension and an improvement upon what Israel has in the Iron Dome. So I just think it's possibly a waste of money to buy this other system unless we're going to be using it as redundancy. But I think I'm not sure that it's worth it. This is something that experts in the field would probably have to weigh in on. If there's any experts there, then by all means weigh in. But I just don't think that we should be wasting our money on the over-the-horizon system that is probably going to take us 10, 20 years to even install because Canada is so slow at doing things, where Golden Dome is going to be up and running in really around 2.5 to 3 years. So I'm just thinking it would be a lot better to just get in on the Golden Dome situation. And if you think about it, we should be paying about 1/8 of the cost because we have 1/8 of the population. But we're actually already paying for a lot of it. and we're going to get to that a little later in the program. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with the. I'm actually going to stick with the defense theme first in the first part. I'm going to kind of veer off the defense theme later on, but I'm going to and I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to end with a couple of things that kind of lead into other things, but I'm going to stick with the defense theme. Primarily, I'm going to go and let's talk about the F-35s. This is interesting, I think, because of really how Carney can screw up our relationship with the U.S. big time. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't diversify a lot of our defense systems, but as far as a fighter goes, we're not huge like the States. We don't. It's not like we can afford to have a whole bunch of different fighters. We're already committed to the F-35. We've got the F-18, and we're committing to the F-35. If we bring in another system, that costs a lot more money because of the maintenance requirements. So let's hear what Carney has to say about the F-35 and a few other things.
Weeks after the election, with Global News. During the election, you were very Republican saying that the old relationship that Canada has with the U.S. is over. You said that Donald Trump is trying to break us so he can own us. But now, just a couple weeks after the election, there's conversations, at least, about further integrating the Canadian military with the U.S. about the Golden Dome. What do you say to Canadians who voted for you based on your elbows and mentality with the Americans?
Well, first, one of the reasons why we're having more constructive discussions with the Americans is because we are demonstrating our ability that we have choices. We have choices economically. We have choices with respect to our defense. I'll give you several examples to back that up. With respect to the F-35, it was raised a moment ago, we have alternatives for the F-35 for the back end of that. European alternatives that we could pursue. We have to weigh them in the best interests of Canada. That's how we will evaluate it. With respect to broader defense, whether it's air, sea, land, cyber, we have other partnerships that we can strike. And one of the things is...
Yes, so they have other partnerships that they can strike. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to create partnerships with other nations that were... historically aligned with, whether it's Great Britain, whether it's France, whether it's other countries in Europe, whether it's Australia and New Zealand. I'm not saying that's bad at all. But what I think his problem is, well, I think Mark Carney has a lot of problems, is he wants to do things that are possibly... kind of counterproductive to North American security and our relationship with the United States. First off, I'm going to play this fairly long clip from Vassy. It's longer than I would like to play, but it does have a lot of substance to it. And she's interviewing the ambassador to Canada from the United States, and he touches on a lot of these things here, and he really explains why buying European fighters might not be a good idea for Canada.
And more specifically, Canada's participation. Have there been formal conversations about that possibility?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the president's moving forward on a number of big initiatives, whether it's trade, tariffs, the Middle East, Ukraine. But he talked about the Golden Dome during the campaign, and it's like, okay, it's time to put one more thing into process. And I think he and his team decided the last couple of days would be a good time to bring it up. Mentioned that Canada might be able to participate in it. Canada said they'd like to participate in it, but there's a lot of steps that need to be crossed before we actually reach that point.
On the face of it, do you think it would be a good thing for Canada to participate in?
Well, I mean, we've had NORAD since 1958. I think that's worked pretty well for the U.S. and it's worked well for Canada. It's, I think, one of the only, if not the only, bilateral military relationship in the world. So I think it would. But I mean, there's criteria. Okay, and some of those criteria are being questioned right now. One of the criteria for NORAD is interchangeability and interoperability. So that would mean that we're flying the same kinds of planes, we're using the parts, and it's all interchangeable and it's one system. Canada is challenging that. They'd made a decision to buy F-35s. That's now up for review. If Canadians are flying one airplane, we're flying another airplane. It's no longer interchangeable, and so that might even threaten NORAD without talking about new alliances that promise even more security and safety to our people.
Is it your view that that NORAD is under threat?
Well, if Canada decides to buy equipment and those types of things that no longer are interoperable with America, it means that that's one of the fundamental agreements of NORAD. And if Canada can do what it wants, and if it decides to move in a different direction, we would have to have some kind of a discussion on NORAD. Yeah. Are
those discussions? Are you part of any of those discussions at this point?
No, not at this point, because I mean, Canada hasn't made a decision on the F-35. They're just saying we're going to go back and reevaluate it, and I think at that point in time, it'll be important for the U.S. to point out, wait a minute, this is a fundamental basis for NORAD. Okay, and those discussions are not going on. The Prime Minister has indicated that some of these things are under review, and as I've said multiple times, when people ask me about the Prime Minister and where he's going and what he's doing, it's kind of like, let's give him some time to actually announce that. Let's wait for the, for the speech from the throne, which happens in, 5-6 days? Yeah. Exciting time for Canada. The King is coming. The King of Canada is coming. And, we will hear the speech from the throne. We will hear more about the exact agenda. A couple weeks after that, Canada's hosting the G7. So a lot of things in play before we get to any major news and reevaluations or whatever. I'm hoping that none of those questions ever come up. Okay.
In principle, can I ask you, as the administration's representative? I just want to ask in principle, because look, I think over the last number of months, Canadians have, been somewhat startled to hear of alliances we thought were very secure questioned. I know that you'll have your view, and President Trump has his view. When you bring up NORAD, and I take your concerns around interoperability, for example, and interchangeability, but let's put those aside for a second. In principle, do you believe in NORAD? Do you believe in that alliance with Canada?
Absolutely. Like I said, it's been around since 1958. It's been one of the most successful military alliances in the world for 42 plus 25, 67 years. We should be thrilled with that kind of success. So no, I think we're totally committed to NORAD, modernization of NORAD, and those types of things. I don't think this is a question of us. I hope it's not a question for Canada, but that's not a story coming out of here. U.S. questions NORAD. Absolutely not.
Because you kind of did, to be fair, right?
Yeah, so she gets, Bassey gets a little bit confrontational there and tries to trap him into saying things that he's not saying. It's just kind of the typical trying to get a soundbite out of people from the news. So, anyways, I've got some things to say about this. I'm just going to go back and say hello to a few people here. Tiger Eye, I don't think I said hello to Tiger Eye yet. Maybe I did. Bernie, how are you? Bernie Moore. Lynn, I think I said hello to you. I think this BLK Carbon Dragon, I think that's Black Carbon Dragon, probably. How are you today? Kenzie, welcome to Kenzie Kraken, or I always want to say McCracken, but Kenzie Kraken, how you doing? Tyndale, how are you today? And Liz, another Liz we have there. So hope everybody is doing great. So yeah, some of my comments on this. Interoperability, interchangeability, I think that is a good thing to have. Now, I don't think that having multiple fighters is a good idea for Canada. Having multiple fighters, if you're, different models of fighters, is probably a good idea for the U.S., but they're so much larger and they have so many other, sections and services and yada, yada, yada. So they can work, it can work with them. And it's not like they're, when they get a new fighter plane, it's not like they're carrying on building old fighters all that often. Now they do have some pretty old fighters and attack aircraft. They're still using the Warthog, for crying out loud, the A-10 Warthog, which is great. I mean, it's even today, they're deploying it against the Houthis. So they have a lot of aircraft that they're still deploying. And I get that. But Canada's a small country, and we're not pulling our weight militarily. How is it that Carney thinks that it's going to be fiscally responsible to add to our arsenal not only the F-35s, but aircraft from Europe that we're going to have to retool and get all sorts of different tools and different training and cross-train our mechanics and the whole bit. I just don't see it. And because we have such a small fleet of aircraft, especially fighter aircraft, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It absolutely does not make any sense to me to do that. If it was a large fleet, I could see it, but with such a small fleet, such a there's going to be, it's just not fiscally responsible, in my opinion. Now, of course, there's all the arguments, well, we should have been building our own for decades and decades, going back to the Diefenbaker era when we had an opportunity to build the best fighter jet in the world, which probably would have even still been in service today, or models of it in service today, from the Avro Aero. But that was tanked for political reasons to satisfy the U.S. administration at the time. And that was a really dumb decision. But we're still making dumb decisions, aren't we? We're still making dumb decisions. We're committed to buying so many F-35s. Well, to go off and buy a different aircraft, that's a dumb decision now. That is an absolute stupid decision. Stick with the F-35s. We don't have a big enough military to diversify our fighter plane cadre. We just do not. So I don't think that is very smart at all. But Carney's not a very smart guy. I don't believe he's a smart guy at all. He's a political monster. He takes credit for everybody else's ideas. He steals everybody else's ideas. He takes credit for all the successes of former politicians. He's not a very smart guy. And this is one thing that I'm really going to, I'm probably going to go off on when I play it, because it really irked me when I saw it and when I heard it. But I'm going to play it. If I go off on a rant after playing it, you'll know why.
With our European partners is, as you will have heard, but I'll repeat, that we have been discussing with our European partners is becoming a full partner of Rearm Europe, Safe Europe, different acronyms for a major relationship that we can have that gives us diversification, new partners, new options, better value for money, potentially more domestic Canadian economic benefits. So all of that exists in parallel to potential opportunities with the U.S. And the way I would characterize the change in the relationship, and I stood in this room and made those comments the first time, and I'm very clear, and I absolutely repeat them today, which is we had for almost half a century, we as Canada, a relationship with the Americans which were a steady process of deepening integration. Deepening integration in economics. We went from free trade deal through to CUSMA, deepening integration in military aspects. And that process of deepening integration is over. We are in a position now where we cooperate when necessary, but not necessarily cooperate. So we have other options for that cooperation. We are pursuing those other options. You will see a very different set of partnerships, security and economic, going forward. But to be absolutely clear.
Okay, so there's a few things here that I am just not impressed about. First off, rearm Europe. Rearm Europe. I don't have a problem with us having a relationship, military alliance with European countries, but for Canada to be involved in rearm Europe, listen, Carney, I am not European. Okay, I have European heritage, but I am not European. I know Carney, he thinks he's European because he holds a couple of European passports, but I am not European. My tax money, is wasted too much in Canada and wasted on this bloated government, and he wants to be a part of rearm Europe. He wants to realign this strategy, this whole military strategy, so that we are helping Europe and doing less to help the United States. And when he says that he's not necessarily going to commit to helping or being a partnership with the U.S., is essentially what he said there. It's only if it benefits us. Well, it benefits us, Carney. A strong U.S. benefits Canada. This guy is dangerous. This guy is an absolute horrible prime minister, and he's dangerous. He's dangerous to our relationship with the United States. He's dangerous to the sovereignty of Canada, for those who think that it's worthwhile sticking together. And he's dangerous to the safety of North America. No, Carney, I am not European. I do not want to rearm Europe. And first off, rearming Europe is a really dumbass, sorry for swearing, it's just a stupid thing for Canada, being on the brink of economic disaster because of the amount of spending that Trudeau did over the past 10 years, and now you're doing. It's just really, really stupid. And not to mention the fact that, okay, you're going to rearm Europe, but you're going to disarm Canadians. You're going to disarm the civilian population. Well, you idiot, if you didn't disarm, if you weren't so interested in disarming the Canadian population, you would have civilians who'd be willing to stand up if there was for themselves and for our country if we were ever invaded. But you're not intelligent enough to see that far ahead, because that's essentially what the Second Amendment is. The Second Amendment for the United States is all about protecting the United States. It's about protecting each other. It's about protecting yourself. But it's also about standing up and protecting the United States from a government that becomes tyrannical, but also from foreign forces. And this idiot, Carney, doesn't understand that. But he's okay rearming Europe. He's okay sending fully automatic firearms to civilians in Israel and civilians in the Ukraine. I know I got in trouble. Somebody said that. It's not the Ukraine, it's Ukraine. But he's not okay with Canadians having semi-automatic firearms. I just, the stupidity coming out of Ottawa is unbelievable, just completely unbelievable. Yeah. So hello, Wilfred. I like to catch up on saying hello to people during the podcast. Hello, Michael. Hello. I think I said hello to Bernie before. Wilfred, how you doing? Mike McKenzie and Annette and Ronald, how are you? Doug Smith, welcome, Doug. And Tony Connor, how are you doing? Lucy, hello, Lucy. Liz, Liz said, did I get a file that you sent me on X? I didn't get anything on X, but I'll look. I'll look. Or did you send it to an email address of mine? I'm not sure. But if you send, there is an email address on my YouTube page that you can send me stuff if you need to. And I don't always check it because I'm just not very good at checking emails, but I will check it, and I'll check it right after this. Well, yeah, so that's, hello, Barbara, and Quantum Life. Barbara just tuned in here, I guess, and Quantum Life from Wildwood, Alberta. Wildwood, guess what? I policed Wildwood way back in the day. It was part of my first detachment. I was in Evansburg, lived in Entwistle. Yes, I remember Wildwood quite well. I got some beer glasses thrown at me in the Wildwood pub, in the Wildwood Hotel. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, I got some beer glasses thrown at me. Just doing bar checks and stuff like that. Yeah, good times. But yeah, that was part of my first detachment. Hello, Alberta 51. So my whole problem with that is he's basically saying to the U.S., we're only going to cooperate with you if we want to. And I get that, but this is not the time to say to President Trump, look, we're going to be very selective in our cooperation with you. This is not the time. And it's not the time to say we're going to become part of Europe. We are not part of Europe. I am not European. Most Canadians, I would say, would disagree with spending more money to support Europe. Those countries can support themselves. They're not suffering. Okay? Allow them to support themselves. Look after our own house. Get our house in order first before we help out the rest of the world. I've always said that, and I just hate the fact that just because he considers himself to be European, that he's going to force the rest of us into some sort of unholy alliance with countries that really have very little culturally similar to Canada. We are culturally almost identical to the United States. I don't care what anybody tells you. In the West here anyways, we're almost culturally identical to the United States, or at least the conservative parts of the United States. But what do we have in common with Europe? Maybe more culturally similar to Europe than we are to other areas of the world. But as far as I'm concerned, we're culturally almost identical to the United States, and that's where we should focus our cooperations with. Hello, Resolute Ronan. So that's kind of my opinion on Carney and what he says about that. But, here's a little thing. This is, hello, Marianne. I don't think I said hello to Marianne. This is, it's not really contradictory, but let's have a listen to what Trump says about building the Iron Dome and how it's going to benefit, and how really we're already paying for it. We're already paying for it, or at least companies that are importing Canadian goods are paying for it, because it's more like a tax on them than on us. But let's have a listen.
Jim, do you want to talk about Indiana?
Yeah, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I live, we make all the space satellites at L3 Harris. Across the board, we're the top manufacturing state in the country. By the way, the tariffs have been very good for auto manufacturing in Indiana.
So good.
But this is going to be really good for the defense industry in my state. And there's so much money involved here. There are going to be a lot of American companies involved in making the Golden Dome
You
possible.
might also say, you're talking about the tariffs, here's some of the biggest auto plants in the world moving into Indiana only for one reason, maybe two reasons, November 5th and the tariffs, okay?
Yes, sir.
But the tariffs have driven tremendous business into this country. But you have one of the biggest in the world being
The
built.
Honda Civics,
Right.
the new Honda Civic made in Indiana. GM has added jobs. Eli Lilly moving pharmaceutical manufacturing from China to the United States, $27 billion. You go on and on with good news in Indiana and across the country because of the tariffs.
Our country was...
And I think that, there is a point to be made there. Okay, so we have, we're basically, the taxes, the tariffs, so the tax on Canadian imports to the United States is already paying for a lot of this in a certain way. And I'm not saying that he's wrong in doing the tariffs, but it's beneficial to him. It's already sort of paying this way. So, in a sense, we're kind of already in on the program. We might as well go full in on it because we're already paying for it. But that kind of leads us into some non-defense talk this evening, because Melanie Joly did an interview. I'm not as negative towards Melanie as a lot of people are. But, she had some things to say, and let's just roll this, and then we'll talk about it.
Canada's countermeasures on automobiles include provisions about investments, footprint, and employment levels by the D3 in Canada. How come we're still seeing production cuts, shifts being cut, layoffs at the D3?
So, a couple of things. I had last week a conversation with Honda regarding their investments in the electric vehicle sector. The CEO confirmed that no jobs would be cut and the conditions of workers would remain the same, and that there was still a commitment to the electric vehicle sector, but there is a softening of the demand. So that's just a reality, and it's linked also not only to the U.S. tariffs, but it is also linked to the fact that President Trump has decided not to go ahead with the Inflation Reduction Act. So the IRA that was put in place by President Biden that was providing for support for electric vehicles. So that's the first point. Second is, I spoke this morning with the president of Stellantis. He also assured me that there would be no job loss and the conditions of workers would remain the same. But indeed, there is also a softening of the demand on the electric vehicle side. So,
okay, so if you want to believe that, but here's the thing. Honda has stopped production or stopped building their facility in Canada, put a 2-year hold on it, but basically it means that they've scrapped it because they're not going to start in 2 years. Putting a 2-year hold on a project like that means that it's done. You're not going back to it. They're going to find a way to just bow out of that in 2 years. And how much of our money has the Canadian government given to them for this project? But as you heard in the previous clip, in Indiana, all of the tariffs, they're shutting things down in Canada, but Honda is building in the United States. So this is benefiting the it's doing what he wants to do. Trump is getting what he wants. He's getting businesses building in the United States. They're not building in Canada though. Why? Because it's too expensive. And then to export to the United States, almost our sole market, well, it's difficult to do. So, and she's saying that, they're not going to lay off people. They're not going to cut back. Well, they already have, because they're not building. And then Stellantis, I think they put the brakes on a Dodge. It's a Dodge Daytona. So they're bringing back the Daytona, I think it was, and it was going to be an electric car, and they put the brakes on that as well. So, yeah. Do you believe anything that she says? I mean, I'm not as negative on her as a lot of people are, but I still don't think that she should be in politics, because she's not all there. She doesn't have the wherewithal, and it's like she just doesn't know her job, or she doesn't. I guess she just isn't as informed as she should be, because things are happening and she's not clued in on them. But then she said this about tariffs in general.
Talk about the consequences of the tariffs. What are you doing specifically to get rid of the tariffs on automobiles and steel?
Well, a couple of things. Of course, we're in negotiations with the Americans right now. The Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, also in charge of U.S. trade, Dominique LeBlanc, is in Washington as we speak. He's been in contact with many officials. But that being said, also, we've worked as well with the auto sector in Canada to make sure that we could find a way to protect the jobs in that sector that is really, really affected through a remission system. So that's what we've done. Now things are going very fast, and negotiations are happening by the hour. So that's the only thing that I can say.
Canada's countermeasures on automobiles.
So a remission system. So what I gather from that is they're just going to be printing money. They're just going to be printing money, giving it out to everybody. They've already, and if they say, well, they're going to pay for it with counter tariffs, they pretty much canceled the counter tariffs. They've silently canceled the counter tariffs, and that was almost a month ago, or probably even more than a month ago. It was during the election time. It was more than a month ago. It was around April the 16th, I believe it was, or before that. So more than a month ago, they silently cut all of the counter tariffs that they said they needed. And, I don't know, things are changing almost by the day, but you can't believe a damn thing that comes out of those liberals' mouths. It's just ridiculous what they say and what they're trying to get us to believe. So, hey, why don't we just print money and give money to all of these Canadians? Now, I don't have clips of this, but talking about printing money, I think it was Francois Philippe Champagne was talking about rebuilding the Ukraine, or rebuilding Ukraine, and how much money that was going to cost. It was going to be like $500 billion, $500 billion. Think about this. We can't afford that. And if we just stopped worrying about other countries and started and really concentrated on Canada, how much good would $500 billion do for Canadians, for Canada? It would probably solve a lot of our problems. It would probably solve the hunger problem. It would probably solve the homeless problem. Although I don't agree with handing money out to people. I think that building on what we have, and some support systems, obviously a lot of support systems, but we're giving tons of money away where we could build systems and put systems in place and just build an economy that improves everybody's lives. That would make a lot more sense to me. But no, they want to give money away. So there's a couple more things I wanted to talk about. One thing, before we get into the last topic, which I don't have any clips on, I do have one more clip. I know I'm kind of heavy on the clips these days, but I do have one more clip, and then we'll talk about it. And this is as a kind of a complete turn. It is sort of defense, but it's not really related. But it is so it's a bit of a 180 here. Let's have a listen to what Carney said about the incident that happened with the diplomats in Israel.
These votes.
And just really quickly, I wanted to get your reaction on the IDF who fired some shots at some Canadian diplomats. Does that change your stance on Israel? Should we impose sanctions?
Well, the Israeli ambassador has been summoned to Global Affairs to see the minister and explain. We expect a full investigation. We expect a immediate explanation of what happened. It's totally unacceptable. It's some of many things that are totally unacceptable that's going on in the region.
Okay, so the question from the reporter, this obviously woke left reporter, should we impose sanctions on Israel for this? No. Sanctions on Israel. What a stupid thing to say. Israel is, like it or not, an ally of Canada. I mean, I don't think we have a lot of formal agreements, but they are an ally of Canada, and they were attacked. I'm not saying we should send a lot of money to them. I'm not saying we should, support, financially support their military operations, but we definitely should not sanction them. That's completely stupid. But here's a take that I haven't heard anybody else express, so I'm probably going to get some hate for it. But here's the thing. First off, the reporter said that the IDF fired at the diplomats. They did not fire at the diplomats. The reports are simply that shots were fired in the vicinity. And then it came back that warning shots were fired in the vicinity. And now it's coming out that the diplomats wandered off their route. They had a route, they published their route, and then they wandered away from their route. They're in a war zone, for crying out loud. What the hell do they expect? There's going to be gunfire. There's going to be things happening. And you get all upset that you go into a war zone and there's gunfire in the vicinity. And you wonder, and you think you can just go anywhere? You wander away from your designated route, the trail that you're supposed to stay on, and somebody fires off a warning shot, maybe at you, maybe at somebody else. We don't even know. It's suggested that it was probably a warning shot meant to get them back on track. But we don't even know that. We just know for sure that there was gunfire in the vicinity. You entered into a war zone and you're freaking out that there was gunfire in the vicinity? Give your head a shake. These people are idiots. You don't go into a war zone and not expect to hear gunfire. I just don't understand these people. And diplomats they're supposed to be on the ball, but I don't think that they are. I really don't. I don't think that these people have any special abilities. When Melanie Joly was the foreign minister, she did some really stupid things. She she shook hands with a known terrorist and had a photo op with a known terrorist, and we're supposed to listen to her? These diplomats are not smart people, and so they wander into a war zone, and even if they got shot at, which they didn't, what do they expect? You're in a war zone. Give your head a shake. I just don't understand these people who think that they're immune from everything. They're not immune. You're not immune. You go into, and we're sticking our nose into and trying to intervene where it shouldn't be. The two main wars that are going on would probably have been over, and a lot less people have been killed if we just did not stick our noses into it. The Ukraine war would have been over within a couple of months, and they had a deal on the table ready to be signed, but Biden got his grubby little fingers in there, and now look, we're over 2 years later, and 3 years actually, almost, isn't it? 3 years later, and things haven't been solved. 5,000 people a week are dying in this war. Yeah, thanks, Biden. You should have just kept your grubby fingers out of that. And now Trump has to come in and solve the problem. I trust that he will solve the problem over any liberal, only over any Democrat, because they have never been able to solve anything. You go back to Nixon. I know a lot of people, Nixon, I am not a crook, Nixon, don't have very many good things to say about him. But look at what he did with Kissinger, and all the progress he had in the Middle East. And then Ronald Reagan, compare Republicans to Democrats, the successes that Republicans have towards peace processes. I think you find that Republicans are they're the horse to back. But when these liberals, they try to get their grubby little fingers in on the deal, they just screw things up. And I just think it's ridiculous. How they do that. And don't complain that you get shot at if you enter into a war zone. Don't complain that there's gunfire in your vicinity. Don't complain that there is warning shots because you go off of your designated route. Don't be an idiot. You took that chance. You went off the desired route. You took your chance, and that's it. So the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about here is I'm not going to get too much. I don't want to get into the separatist stuff or the Alberta independence. Let's call it independence moving forward. I'm not going to get into that because I've talked about it so much in other episodes. But what I wanted to mention is MAID. And I know it's a complete 360 or 180 degree turn here in this episode, but something came up this week. A pamphlet by a Christian group that is against MAID, but it's kind of been turned back on them. A lot of people are thinking that they're supporting it, but they were just pointing out the hypocrisy and the evils of MAID. So I just wanted to talk about that for a quick sec. I don't have a visual or anything to bring up. I didn't have time. As I said, I had some technical difficulties earlier on today. But what is really sad about this program, first off, I want to say I have no problem with people deciding for themselves what their ultimate destiny is and having control over themselves. My father, for example, will probably avail himself of MAID in the next little while. But the difference is he's in an end of life situation where, it's a dying with dignity thing, okay? I have no problem with that. Make your own choices. What I have a problem with, though, is I have a problem with doctors making a suggestion. I don't think a doctor should ever bring up MAID. If somebody wants MAID, they know it exists. They should be the one to bring it up to the doctor. Doctors should not ever, ever, ever bring up MAID. And the other thing I have a problem with, two more things. Is first, MAID for mental health issues is not what it should have. No, it's not what it was designed for initially, and should never ever go there. Should never go there. You're depressed, you're sad, and you decide to opt out. That's a cop out. That is a total cop out, in my opinion. We should be trying to help these people. But the other thing is now they're trying to expand it to youth. They say, and so basically it's a mature minor, they say, can make a decision on MAID. And they don't have to consult with their parents, and their parents don't have to be consulted. This is demonic. This is absolutely demonic. How in the world can any society think that this is appropriate? This is evil. This is a thing that the evil movies from the 70s and 80s and 90s were made of. Those post-apocalyptic worlds, those that they depicted in those movies. It's evil. There is no way that any society should be encouraging the death of their people beyond end of life assistance. And what I mean by that is, it's the end of your natural life. And by natural life, I include with diseases and stuff like that. So my dad has cancer. He wants to avail himself of MAID when the time comes. No problem with that. But that's what it was originally designed for. But when you go beyond that, you get into some pretty sick territory. And now when they're allowing, or they want to expand it to youth, to children, who basically minors, they say mature minors, that's ridiculous. That's evil. And that's what you get with a lot of these extreme left-wing communist governments. And I'm saying it. I believe that the liberals are communists. That's my belief. You can argue with me. You can, call me names in the comments. That happens all the time. But this is my belief. I don't believe that this is at all appropriate. So we got to do something about this. We got to fight against this stuff. Yeah, self-determination, absolutely. If you don't want to, stay in this world, that's your choice. Doctors shouldn't have nothing to do with it unless it's end of life care, end of natural life care, as far as I'm concerned. So relieve the suffering of people who are dying of disease. No problem with that. As long as it's their choice. But doctors should not ever bring it up. Doctors should not ever encourage it. And to expand it to children, to expand it to mental health issues, is evil. It's absolutely evil. So it's just what I believe. So let's, yeah, I kind of went off on a bit of a rant there, but that's kind of what I do. I go off on rants. So I'm just going to scroll back to see what people have been talking about while I've been ranting. And see, hello, Harley T. I think I said hello to you before. A few people I probably didn't say hello to. I'll probably catch some. Okay. Another failing system. Yeah. So going way back to when we're talking about missile defense from Australia. I don't know if that radar system is really missile defense. It's a warning system, not really missile defense. So I just don't think that we should duplicate. Yeah, Lynn says Carney is more European than Canadian. He thinks that way for sure. Put Carney on the northern border, Bernie says. Yeah, his creepy ass smile will just freak out. Everybody will just turn around and run from that. Yeah. Jessica says the U.S. is manufacturing the only 6th-gen fighters on Earth now, the F-47. F-47, I don't think I've seen that one. But, yeah, hey, we're always going to be a generation or two behind in Canada. Okay. So Tony says that the EU and the UK are in worse economic shape than we are. That may be true, but, we definitely should not hitch our wagon to the UK or the EU if they are, and we shouldn't be supporting them because they have the ability to pull themselves out of that. And since we're so far down the economic toilet, then we should not be, throwing our money away, trying to pull everybody else out. Just my opinion. Annette, how are you? I think I said hello to you before. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I did. Talking about the election a little bit. Yeah, the election. Still doing some recounts. Come on, it's a month later. Get it done. Yeah, going back. Yeah. So Carney talked about intercontinental ballistic missiles. He's such a goof. I don't trust a damn thing he's saying. And when he talks about military, I don't think he knows anything what he's talking. He's an economist, obviously. I don't think he knows anything about economy, to be completely honest. Yeah. The Golden Dome protection and border issues, Trump will have more grounds to push for Canada becoming an addition to America. Resolute, Ronan, I've talked about this before. I don't think all of Canada will ever go. I think that part of Canada, the West, should go, and it's possible. But I also don't think the United States wants all of Canada. And unless the East were territories, because then they wouldn't upset the balance of power in Congress. Hello, Dusty. How are you today? Going back a ways to 1845 or 645. So, yeah, how can they fix what they've destroyed? Marx 101. Well, see, the liberals are like this, right? They create a problem and then they try to fix it, but they only fix about 90% of it or 80% of it. They don't even fix all of the problem that they created, and they create the problem in order to look like they're fixing it. That's kind of their circular, not really circular argument, but how they work, how they operate. I don't trust them. I think you've gotten that impression from what I've said. Yeah, I don't trust them. I'll throw my lot in with the U.S. any day if the other choice is Europe. Europe is done and dusted. Does Brookfield have business there? Yeah, I was watching some. Moose on the Loose today, and he was talking about the CPP and all of the investments that they want Brookfield to take over, and how lousy our returns have been, in the 9% area, where a lot of funds are in the past year did as well as 26%. So, yeah, I don't trust Brookfield at all. Marco Menachino just quit Mark Carney as Mark Carney's chief of staff. That's interesting. He was a bit of a doughhead, in my opinion. I don't know. Like, does the chief of staff really? For most politicians, I mean, they're just kind of following orders. I mean, I know that Trudeau's chief of staff, they did a lot because Trudeau didn't do anything. But did is chief of staff really pushing policy and driving policy? I don't know. Let me know. Are they? I think they're following orders. They're doing what they need to do to keep things going. I think Trudeau's chief of staff were a little more hands-on because Trudeau was so hands-off. Hello, Stephen. Didn't Jolie want to nuke the United States? I don't recall her wanting to, but I know she said some really stupid things about, preparing to fight the U.S. So on one hand, they want us to defend ourselves against the U.S., but on the other hand, they're taking our guns away from us. That's real. Yeah, that's one of those contradictions that they always have. But as I said to one of my students who said something really stupid about, not that he was stupid, he was a great guy, but he said, could I get in trouble if I shot an American when they were invading us? And I looked at him and thought, like, what an idiot. Not that he was an idiot, but a stupid thing to say. First, they're not going to invade us. Stop believing all this hype. And second, you won't live long enough to get in trouble. The rest of his buddies would toast you. It's a stupid thing to say. We should not ever think that we need to defend ourselves against the United States. They're our friends. They're our neighbors. They're practically our siblings. She did say stupid stuff like that. Absolutely in the past. And she should be called out for the stupid things she said, especially when she was the foreign minister. Hello, Arnold. I don't think I said hello to Arnold. The U.S. will absorb Canada, and Carney is the man to put the position to facilitate the transfer of Canada to the U.S. I don't know. If you read the book that Diane Francis wrote over a decade ago now, I still have it. She was talking about the formulas for the payout of the United States absorbing Canada. It is a bit of a purchase because of the resources that would have to be paid out. I don't know if it's realistic what she was saying, that every Canadian would get some sort of a financial benefit from it. I've never really looked at that other than what I've read in her book. But there is, there's lots of things to consider how it would be done. Hello, SA Bound. take the diplomats to Gaza and leave them there. Okay. Probably shouldn't comment on that because I will get into trouble. Because I'll make a comment as a joke. Somebody will take it as being serious. And I don't want that to happen. I've been in trouble for joking around in the past. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Brad Griffins, I don't think I said hello to you yet. Hello. I guess back when I was talking about MAID, he made some comments. I think I pretty much covered that. I beat that one to death, so to speak. Kind of a, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I shouldn't say it like that. Yeah, so as I said, like, I don't have a problem with people using MAID if it's end of life care. If they have a disease, I just don't think that it should be offered up to children, and I don't think it should be pushed on people. Yeah. So I'm kind of middle of the road, I guess, leaning more conservative on that one. Quantum Life says, too many snowflakes. Just let them melt. I agree. Anyway, yes, so I'm getting really hungry. I haven't actually eaten today. I was tied up on this technical problems that I was having on putting this together all day, and I did a little bit of work on the house. I got to do a lot of work. Got to clean up everything tomorrow, all of my my work area down here, because just off on the other side of the camera is where I'm doing a lot of renovations, and that's also my classroom, and I have a student coming over on the weekend. Just one student, unfortunately. I couldn't get any more for the class, but that's okay. It's not like it's costing me anything to put the class on, and yeah, keeps me current in my teaching duties. So tomorrow it's a big cleanup day for me here to get that all out of the way. I've finished building. Well, I shouldn't say I've finished. I've practically finished the outer door to my secure room. Next week I have to do a little bit of trim work on it, and then pour an epoxy resin insert, that is, so because it's actually in front of the outer door is actually a liquor cabinet kind of thing, so that'll be kind of clear. So I had I got to finish that off, but I won't be able to do that before this gentleman comes over for my course, so I'll do that next week. Got a lot of stuff to do next week. I don't know if I'll be putting out too many videos. However, I will be going live to make fun of Chuckles the Clown, a.k.a. King Charles III. Because I don't really think we should have a king. But I'll be going live to make fun of the all of that stuff, and and do a critical analysis of the speech from the throne and probably all the pomp and ceremony leading up to it. Although I still have to figure out exactly when it and where it's going to be broadcast, because that's not 100% clear right now. I think that is probably going to be on CTV, CBC, and CPAC, but you never know. I normally like to put or do the parliamentary sessions from Parleview, but I don't know if that's going to work out. I am going to be doing it. If you want to watch that, I'm going to be using my other channel. I only have about 9 subscribers, hey, go over to that other channel and subscribe. It's Cavalryman Live. I will be putting it on that channel, and then if I take any clips from it, I will be clipping it to videos on this channel. So if you want to go over there, you can, you can go to Cavalryman Live. There are links in the description of this video and all my videos to all my channels. It's also on the main page of this channel to Cavalryman Live. So check that out. Sign up for that channel. I want to put live streams on that channel, that not my weekly live stream. I'm still going to keep my weekly live stream here. But on that channel, I'm going to do daily live streams when Parliament is in session of question period. I just don't want to clutter this channel up with that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm going to be doing it on that channel. And then maybe some, other special events that I'm not going to live stream here. I will still keep this on this live stream on this channel though. And if I expand, do a bi-weekly live stream, I'll probably keep it on this channel. I'm thinking about when I get things, when I'm not as busy around the house and in the yard as what I will be in the next little while. I'm thinking about changing the format up a little bit because single topic videos that go longer don't seem to interest a lot of people. The multi-topic videos, more of the reporting, commenting, and doing shorter segments on commenting on stuff seem to be a little bit more popular. So I may do that, switch things up a little bit. So hey, check that out. I hope everybody has a fun and great weekend. Hey, you know what? In Canada, we're finally getting a good weekend. This is This is the U.S. long weekend, and we get good weather. Our long weekend last week, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't as good as what this weekend is going to be. So get out, get some sun. I'm probably going to get out in the yard and do some work. You never know. But next week I will be doing a little bit, but probably not as much on the channel as what I normally do. I will be live streaming that Chuckles the Clown bit, and hey, we'll see if I can put some clips together for that, and I'm sure something will come up I'll want to talk about, because even every time I think that I'm going to take a couple of days off, I want to talk about some stuff because there's just too much happening. So you guys take care. God bless. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next Thursday. Oh, just a second here. Don't want to do that. I want to do this. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. Oh, I'm just screwing everything up.
You've been watching the Northwest Cavalryman Show. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the content. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and share with your friends and on social media. May God bless you. And if you're a liberal crybaby, bless your heart. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Thursday.